Now let's understand how different factors influence our development. Like I said, there will always be an interplay in the interaction of hereditary factors as well as your environment. Now when we talk about hereditary, we inherit genes from our parents which are present in all the cells in our body. So this is how even when a fertilized egg is growing in a human body, there is a genetic code in it. So we receive this genetic material from our parents. The actual genetic material or a person's genetic heritage is known as genotype. So we call it genotype. Now there is something else which is called phenotype. Phenotype are those characteristics which are intelligence, creativity, height, weight, eyes, skin color. So genotypes is the actual genetic material, and phenotype is the characteristics that the person occupies based on the genotype. So your height, weight, eyes, skin color. Also certain psychological traits are also dependent on hereditary. Now there are other factors also which influence development, and that is environment. Although genes provide us a different, distinct blueprint and timetable for each individual, but genes are not the end of the story. There is also environment which plays a very, very different role. So suppose there is a child whose genetic predisposition is towards introversion, but he grows up in an environment which promotes social interaction, extroversion. So there is a possibility that the person who is growing, that the child may become a little more extroverted than he is predisposed to. So how our environment influences the entire process of our growth and development differs based on the environment that we are produced in. So we are also genetically predisposed to certain diseases, right? Now not all of them convert to actual diseases. It depends on the kind of environment that we grow in. Suppose our parents, either let's say one parent has diabetes, so there's a possibility for the child to have diabetes. But if the child is in an environment which is a very healthy lifestyle, is able to manage his entire life cycle in a way which promotes health, that predisposition may not actually happen. So he may or may not get diabetes. Anyways, there's a certain percentage only that gets transmitted. Now, a very interesting, study or an understanding which Sandra Scar gave us was that environment which parents choose for their child depends to an extent on their genetic predisposition. So suppose if there are parents who are introvert, they will also provide an environment which promotes introversion. However, that may not be true all the time. So there's a possibility that the genetic predisposition of the parent decides the environment that they are going to provide to their child. So these are some of the factors that influence how development happens in an individual. Now let's understand the context of development a little more, the environment of development a lot more in detail. Now this is the entire context of development. This was given by Bronfenbrenner. It's very, very famous, very, very important for us to understand. So he gave these different systems that influence the growth and development of an individual. The microsystem, the macrosystem, the mesosystem, exosystem, all of these. Now let's understand what all these different contexts or development are. Microsystem. So microsystem includes the family members, our peers, our teachers and our neighbors. So these are a set of people who are very, very close to us in terms of the environment or the physical proximity, we meet them almost every day, how they influence our development, our learning, our experiences, how they shape our experiences, यानी कि वो हमें किस तरह इन्फ्लुएंस कर रहे हैं, ये माइक्रो सिस्टम कहलाता है. तो जो फैमिली मेंबर्स हैं, जो पेयर्स हैं, टीचर्स हैं, नेबर्स हैं, ये सब हमारे माइक्रो सिस्टम का पार्ट है. द नेक्स्ट थिंग इज मेसो सिस्टम. किस तरह से हमारे पेरेंट्स, यानी कि हमारे पेरेंट्स रिलेट करते हैं हमारे टीचर्स से, हमारे फ्रेंड्स से. सो हाउ आर एनवायरमेंट इज इंटरैक्टिंग विद ईच अदर. So my environment is, say, my parents, how they view my teachers and my friends determines what is the mesosystem all about. यानी कि अब हम समझेंगे एक्सोसिस्टम के बारे में. ट्रांसफर ऑफ फादर और मदर्स जनरल इम्यूनिटीज वेल. तो जो भी जनरल इम्यूनिटीज या फैसिलिटीज हमें हमारे एनवायरनमेंट में मिल रही हैं, जो कि हमारे पेरेंट्स हमें प्रोवाइड कर रहे हैं, यानी कि हमारे पेरेंट्स ने अगर हमें ये प्रोवाइड किया है कि हमारे पास एक रहने को घर है, खाने को खाना है, तो ये हमारा एक्सोसिस्टम है, यानी कि ये हमारी फैसिलिटीज है. नाउ देयर आर आल्सो पेरेंट्स हु आर नॉट एबल टू प्रोवाइड अ सर्टेन सेट ऑफ एम्यूनिटीज, सो वो उस चाइल्ड का एक्सोसिस्टम बन जाए. सो देयर आर डिफरेंट एक्सोसिस्टम फॉर ईच इंडिविजुअल दैट इज ऑपरेटिंग. Macro system, the culture in which the individual lives in. So the society, the culture that we grow in, there are different moral principles or ethical principles or rules of how a culture defines the development, or how a culture determines what one should behave like, or what one should not do. So different aspects of culture, how they impact our experiences, our knowledge, our understanding of things, determines a lot in terms of our development. Now next thing is chronosystem. It refers to how different events in an individual's life, how the history or the circumstances of that person's life impact their development. For example, if there's a child whose parents are getting divorced, then he's getting a different chronosystem than a child whose parents are not getting divorced. Or let's say somebody due to COVID has had a financial setback. Okay, so the growth of their child will be very different from the growth of another child whose parents have not lost their jobs. So a lot of times what happens is these different systems are also interacting with each other. So at one point of time, all of these different systems that we're talking about today are impacting us, our family members. So we have certain abilities because, or certain thought process, because that's how we've been reared, or that is how our parents told us that things will happen. At the same time, a child is also getting impacted by how our parents are talking to each other or talking to another person that we are close to. What are the different amenities that are available to us? What are the different conditions that we are living in? What is the environment of the house? Are we living in a very happy house? Are we living in a house which is filled with, troubled situations? How our culture is impacting our lives, our beliefs, our experiences, our knowledge of things. So all these systems interact with each other at the same time, while a human being is going through the process of development in their life cycle. Now let's understand a very different model given by Durganand Sinha, which is known as the ecological model. According to him, the ecology of the child could be viewed in terms of two concentric layers. So he explains only two different layers that are present. There is an upper layer, which is a more visible layer, which is influenced by home, the nature and quality of schooling, the facilities provided to the child, and nature of interaction between the peer group and the child and the parents. So these are different pictures which are depicting how this uppermost visible layer and what are the different factors that define this layer. The next is the surrounding layer of the child's ecology. It talks about how different amenities or how the different institutional setup, the society in general, how the culture, how the city in which you live in, what are the different amenities available in that, whether your environment is conducive for fresh air or not, whether there's good water or not. So these are the surrounding layers of child ecology which constantly influence the upper layer factors. So there are only two layers according to Durga and Sinha which impact the context of development.